Crowd by Jonny Lazarus. 2-on-1 if they hurry. Lazarus shoots and he scores. Jonny Lazarus took it all the way. The 2-on-1 threat that Shearhart had to acknowledge. And UMass is on the board. It's 2-1.
Welcome you into third period live alongside another star, Jonny Lazarus. I'm Julie Stewart-Binks.
The thing I noticed with the Oilers tonight, though, is everything they've gotten on net has been from the perimeter. They haven't really had many high-danger scoring chances, and that's something that you're not used to seeing with Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl.
Does Wayne Gretzky use emojis in the group chat?
Great question.
You know, that's a good question. I don't think I've seen an emoji yet.
Everyone talked about adding grit to this team, and I think that's been the biggest difference this year with the guys like Tyler Mott, Barclay Goodrow, and Ryan Reeves, who you just mentioned. And that's what you need to go deep in the playoffs.
Good morning, or good afternoon, or good evening, where the hell you're listening to this. You're listening to a new episode of The Cutting Edge with JackKnife, part of the Fat Unflecked Nerds Talking Sports, the sports pod with dad bods. And I got a special guest with me tonight to preview the upcoming NHL season and my beloved New York Rangers. His name is Jonny Lazarus. And you know what? He's here right now. Jonny, I think you should do the introduction of yourself, because who could tell us better about you than you?
Well, first of all, thanks, Jack. And I don't know if it's an absolute honor or a big insult to be invited on the Fat Unathletic Nerds Talking Sports podcast, but I'll take it as a compliment. I just think that name is hilarious. But yeah, I mean, about me, I work, in many different facets of the NHL. I cover the Rangers. I do content with Bleacher Report, and I work specifically on hockey betting with VSiN. So I got my toes dipped in a lot of different pools in the NHL. And, I love talking hockey, and obviously we have some friends in common and whatnot. And I'm really looking forward to being here. So thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely, Jonny. And I think the one friend in particular I got to thank is William Patterson hockey legend, James Carp. And as a thank you for him, I'm going to show you some clips of him playing hockey. Transition.
Carp able to keep it. To the point, Melvin moves in. Cross to Brophy. Brophy moves. Drives it across shot. Score! Carp! Beautiful play. 3:17 to go. Pioneers lead 3-2.
Goal, though. Cap at the point. His shot. Score! That might have been James Carp tipping it in front.
Try to take it all in. It's definitely tough. A lot of good memories here since my freshman year. It's good. It was fun. It was a fun game to play in.
And we're back. And here's some of his stats at William Patterson. 88 games, 54 goals, 68 assists, and 122 points with 159 penalty minutes. You're a bad boy, Carpo. But yeah, this kind
how many slam sticks on the bench?
I don't know how they keep track of that, but it kind of feels like that scene in Spider-Man 2 when Harry introduced Peter to Dr. Octavius, except I'm not sure if Carp actually reached out or if when I DM'd you and said Carp was a mutual friend that you agreed to come on. But regardless, I think him being a mutual friend
reached out.
Help.
Give him credit.
Oh,
Give him credit.
In my defense, I had that written down before I found that out. So,
okay.
But yeah, you've been up to your neck in work lately with the NHL. You were at NHL Media Day in Las Vegas. What was that like?
That was honestly, dude, like the craziest, weirdest day of my life. Cause so I was working a full-time job, up until like 2 months ago. I was working in ad sales for the Tennis Channel. And, I'd been debating for the last 8 months if I should quit or not. Obviously things were kind of going in my favor in the hockey world, but nothing was ever really set in stone enough for me to quit and kind of, go out on that leap. And, being at Media Day almost just justified every decision I made. And being able to be on the ice with Crosby, McDavid, Draisaitl, Bedard, the Hughes brothers, the Kachuk, all these just incredible athletes that, some that I've looked up to as a kid and others that I just admire now as an adult. And, to be at that rink for 2 days and like to call that my job was truly something that I just still haven't like come to terms with. And I understand like how fortunate and lucky I am to be in this position. And, it's something that I really have not taken for granted. And that day was just like so much fun, just being able to, kind of shoot the shit with a bunch of NHL stars, and hopefully the product comes out pretty good, which I'm confident it will. So I can't wait to see the videos when they're done.
Yeah, well, if it's as well as your podcast, the Blue Crew that you host with Cody Franco, that's his last name, Franco, and Avery Zaretsky, formerly of Barstool Sports, it's a great podcast, and I'm sure if it's as good as that, it's going to be great content. And I had the same feeling when I used to work at ESPN. Like I've talked to you about this previously. I worked in their stats department. I don't want to go into too much about what that job entailed, but to look back and think, wow, I put plays in the top 10 of Sports Center. That was amazing. But, COVID happened, and, I decided I love my now wife more than I love that job. So, yep.
I'm sure she's happy to hear that.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. But yeah, I've done something similar. I used to write for Elite Sports New York, and we were invited to, a charity event thrown by Kevin Shattenkirk by a Jam Cancer in the Can, where basically all but 4 Ranger players were there. I interviewed Shattenkirk. I've interviewed, Zibanejad, Kreider, Neil Pionk, Tony DeAngelo. This was 2019, if I remember correctly. Yeah, I remember because it was the day after the 20th anniversary. Was it 20th anniversary? No, 25th anniversary of the 1994 team, and we got shut out by the Hurricanes, and I was at that game, so that was unfortunate, but
not very fun.
Yeah, but still, to go to a hockey game is pretty fun. But anyway, before we get into our beloved New York Rangers, let's get into the NHL in general. What non-Ranger storyline do you want to talk about right now?
What non-Ranger storyline? The first thing that comes to the top of my head is the Ottawa Senators. I think they are going to be so much fun to watch this year. I think they'll get into the playoffs. I think the Islanders and the Panthers will miss out. And the Ottawa Senators, for whatever reason, I'm super high on them this year. And, I think a lot of that has to do with Brady Tkachuk, Tarasenko, just their overall top 6. Drake Batherson, another strong player. Shane Pinto should be signing a contract hopefully soon. But this team just really excites me. They're back end too with Jake Chikrin, Thomas Chabot. They're just, I think if it's not this year, it's next year where they're going to be really competitive. But I am a big fan of the Senators, and I think they're not being talked about enough. So I guess that's a storyline that we could talk about, but we don't have to go into too much detail. But anyone.
Sorry, we don't have to go into the detail about them yet, because I was going to talk about them later when we talk about like teams taking steps forward, steps backwards. But sorry, I think I interrupted you there.
No, you're good. You're good. But yeah, I think the Senators are going to be a lot of fun. That's really the gist of it.
Absolutely. I think a negative storyline is unfortunately the Mike Babcock situation in Columbus, and all the credit in the world to Biz Nasty for, kind of breaking that story. As much crap as I gave him for calling the Rangers fugazis in the 2022 playoffs, to then calling us the for realsies in the 2023 playoffs. I'm like, okay, the problem was he's got jumped on our bandwagon. He was wrong there. But in this case, give credit where credit's due. Like, people trust Biz enough to come to them in that kind of situation. And it ended like I guess what you'd call a hostile work environment. But a positive storyline, Connor Bedard at rookie camp. Whew, the release on that shot, man.
Is that the question?
I mean, no, that's just me talking.
Oh, okay.
That's just things I'm looking into. All right. So
no, I totally agree. I mean, Bedard put on a great show in his first game. And but listen, man, like, I think as good as that kid is, I'm not discrediting him at all. Teams are aware of him, and they don't have many other threats. So like, he's gonna have success, obviously, in the rookie showcase. But when he's playing against NHL defensemen every night, they're gonna be aware when 98's on the ice. So it's not gonna be such an easy league for him.
Yeah, you bring that up. That reminds me of Winning Time, that that scene when Magic Johnson went up against that NBA veteran, and that veteran handed him his ass, showing like, hey, listen, you've still got a lot of growing to do.
Yeah.
But anyway, which teams make the biggest step forward, and which teams make the biggest step backwards? In your opinion, I'll let you go first on this one.
I think, like I said, the biggest step forward, I would say Ottawa. Maybe, I don't want to say a huge step, but a step forward could be Vancouver. They're a team that was a total disaster last year, but Rick Tocchet in a full season behind the bench, Quinn Hughes wearing the C on his chest. They have a lot of talent on that team, I think, but they haven't been able to put it together. And Thatcher Demko can, stay healthy and play to his best ability, he could be a Vezina candidate, I think, this year. So Vancouver, I don't know if they will make the playoffs, but I do think they will compete. So to me, that's a step forward, obviously. Steps backward, the one team that just comes to my mind is the Florida Panthers. I don't want to take away what their run was like last year. Their playoff run was literally, I don't want to call it a Cinderella story either, because they won the President's Trophy the year before. But, they were basically out of the playoff picture, around January, February, and they went on a crazy heater to make the playoffs. Then obviously Sergei Bobrovsky stands on his head and gets them to the Stanley Cup Final, and Matthew Tkachuk has an incredible performance. Carter Verhaeghe scores a lot of clutch goals, and they're able to figure it out. But, that playoff run came with some serious downfalls. They're going to start the year without Aaron Ekblad, without Brandon Montour, and I know they've gotten some guys in their blue line, but, I think this team just might struggle a little bit out of the gate, and I'm not sure if they'll be able to catch up. And then another team that should take a step backwards just with how everything's shaken out with them, and obviously the year they had last year, the Boston Bruins. I'm not saying they won't make the playoffs. They probably will make the playoffs, but, it's obviously hard to replicate the year they had last year, and they've lost a lot of important pieces. So I just think that's the obvious answer for a team that'll take the step back.
Yeah, for me, an honorable mention as far as like taking a step forward. Part of me sees the LA Kings doing some things.
100%.
I can picture the LA Kings being a better team, especially now with Pierre-Luc Dubois, assuming he will like playing there because he forced his way out of Columbus and Winnipeg. Also, maybe Quentin Byfield takes a step forward too. Adrian Kempe is coming off a great season. Maybe some questions in that. I still really can't picture them overtaking Edmonton though because of Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. Maybe if the playoff seeding is favorable to them, they could make the Western Conference Final, but they're more of an honorable mention to me. But you talked about
they've also played really strong series against Edmonton the last 2 years. Like they've been right there. So I agree with that point. I think LA is going to be a really fun team to watch this year, and they are so deep. There's not many flaws on that roster, so that's a great call. I think LA, could easily go on a run.
Absolutely. And we mentioned before the Ottawa Senators. Like there are two teams specifically in the Atlantic I want to focus on. I'll start with the Ottawa Senators. This team is really young. They've played teams competitively the past few years. They were just 6 points behind the second wildcard spot. They got a notorious pest and solid point producer in Brady Tkachuk at captain. I hate him. He looks like Parker from Mr. Meany.
He's the best.
I hate him probably because he does his job so well. Yeah. They got Tim Stutzel, who burst onto the scene after being taken third overall in the 2020 draft. Veteran Claude Giroux amongst their miss. And sure, they traded Alex DeBrincat, but now they got new addition in Vladimir Tarasenko, which will be a huge get for them. On defense, they got Chychrun. I think you mentioned him before. Thomas Chabot, among others. Maybe some questions in that, but I think the Senators are ready to take a step forward and make the playoffs. However, they're not the team in the division I'd say making the biggest step forward. The the Buffalo Sabres, I think it's finally their time. Last year, they finished only 1 point behind the second wild card Panthers. If I'm not mistaken, they have the longest playoff drought of all the teams in the four major North American sports, I think.
2011 was their last year in the playoffs.
Yeah, whether or not that's accurate. Tage Thompson became a star last year, a bit of a late bloomer. He's got plenty of other talent around him. Jeff Skinner, Alex Tuch, Kyle Poso, some young guys like Jack Quinn, JJ Paterka. On defense, they got Owen Power, Rasmus Dahlin. They just got
Dylan Cousins. You missed Dylan Cousins.
Oh, Dylan Cousins too. And I was about to say Connor Clifton. I think he's a family friend to my wife's uncle, which would make him my uncle Bob. He's the New Jersey guy. And last but not least, someone who has the potential to be one of the best goalies in the league down the line, Devin Levi. They may lack some experience, but they are balanced. They Their playoff drought will finally end. At the same time, think about this. Look at the teams in the Atlantic, the Senators, the Sabres, the Red Wings, who have a solid roster of their own and just added Alex DeBrincat. The Maple Leafs, who made some good moves as well and finally got that first-round monkey off their back. I can picture them going to the conference final. The Lightning, the Panthers, who just went to the Cup. I just listed 6 teams in that division. At least 2 of them aren't going to the playoffs, which now brings me to the next part, teams taking a step backwards. I didn't mention the Bruins above. I think the loss of Bergeron and Krejci is too much. Obviously, it's not just that we can't expect them to duplicate last year's success, but I think after having one of the best center cores in the league, to having Charlie Coyle as your number 1 center bites. That's not throwing shade at Coyle. He's a dog. He's a guy who works hard that anyone would love to have on their team, but he's not the number 1 center for a team with Stanley Cup aspirations. I think at best they're a wild card team, and I feel like that's pushing it. I think they're missing the playoffs, but because they still got the likes of recently named captain Brad Marchand, David Pastrnak, and Charlie McAvoy, in the back of my mind, I'm still like, I'll believe it when I see it. And next team I got taking the step backwards, I'll go out west. This should be obvious. The Winnipeg Jets, I think they're on the decline. Their window's shut after losing to Vegas in the first round. They lost the likes of Pierre-Luc Dubois in a trade. I mean, he was gone anyway. Blake Wheeler with the buyout. I feel it's only a matter of time before Connor Hellebuck and Mark Scheifele get shipped off as rentals. Part of me is surprised that Tom Fitzgerald has not gotten Hellebuck on the Devils yet, but part of me is also thinking with the cap space the Devils are going to have, they might just wait to sign him in the offseason. But speaking of the Devils, I mean, I don't put them I'm not going to say they're declining. No way I'm saying they're declining. You're a huge Jack Hughes guy, and I don't blame you. But I still say they are a playoff team. However, I can easily picture them plateauing this year. I think they're going to trend upward again, but this year is kind of plateauing. I don't know if do you watch football? Kind of like the New York Giants, or maybe how the Rangers were last year. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I've been saying that, for the past couple months. I feel like that the Devils just have so much hype around them, and it's warranted, right? Because they had a great year, they had a great offseason, they've gotten stronger on paper, but let's see what they do with the pressure on them. Last year I don't think they were getting everyone's best game. No one was really, circling the Devils in the calendar, but this year with all the, I guess attention they've gotten and all the superstardom they've brought in, they're going to be a team that everyone brings their best game against the Devils. So I'm curious to see how it affects them. They're going to be a fun team to watch. Excuse me. I'm super excited to watch them still, but I don't know what they're going to be like when they're not playing with house money. So, I'm not saying they're a bad team. I think they're an incredible team.
No,
and I think they're going to have a good year, but with the pressure added, I'm curious to see how it goes.
It's not their time yet. And before anyone calls me a biased Ranger fan, I think in 2026, the Devils will win it all, but anyway, to this year, I would not be surprised if they don't make it past the first round. They beat the Rangers, who were loaded with star power, but directionless at coach. They lost in 5 games to the Hurricanes, who were bitten by the injury bug, but had direction at coach. I'm not wowed by their defense other than Dougie Hamilton and Luke Hughes. Luke Hughes is still a baby. I just think their defense is okay. The goalie situation, the Rangers made their goaltending look way better than it actually was, especially when you look at the Carolina series. They have a ton of talent up front. Jack Hughes needs no introduction, and the addition of Tyler Toffoli helps. However, I think they won in spite of Lindy Ruff, not because of him. And now, former assistant coach Andrew Brunette took off to be the head coach of the Nashville Predators. Had he not done that, I'd say it was only a matter of time before Fitzgerald realized Ruff wasn't that good and promoted Brunette. Now, you might be thinking, oh, Jack, that's just an assistant coach. Well, Ulf Samuelsson was just an assistant coach for the Rangers from 2013 to 2016. And it seemed like our defense got weaker after he left. And that's when the competitive window began to shut for us. I wouldn't necessarily say they're taking a step back, as I said before, as much as I'd say they're more so plateauing this year, similar to the Rangers last year. They could still trend upwards again real soon. And just so I have a team out west, the Golden Knights, again, plateauing. Simply put, they're the defending Stanley Cup champions. it's really hard to repeat in this league. Only real major loss they had was Riley Smith in the trade to the Penguins. The Pens, who I truly won't, they're a team I truly won't say they're done until I see it. I don't know if it was you or someone else that said the Islanders are better. I wouldn't go that far, I think. But back to Vegas.
I ranked the Islanders higher than the Penguins, but I've immediately regretted that.
Well, I don't know if that was before or after the Erik Karlsson trade, but no real major additions. Correct me if I'm wrong with that. Like the Devils, I still say postseason, but I can't picture them going on like a real decline after this. You could probably say something similar to the Panthers, who just caught fire, but we're a second wildcard team. But anyway, last NHL storyline, or more so predictions. I want your predictions for the Hart Trophy, the Selke Trophy, the Norris Trophy, Richard Trophy, Vezina Trophy, the Art Ross Trophy, and the Calder. Let me know if I got to repeat any of those.
Well, the Hart Trophy, I mean, these are all so tough, right? Like,
I feel like there's only one answer for.
Yeah,
Hart
how do you
Trophy.
Not take Connor McDavid?
Exactly,
like,
that's who I got to.
He's not going to get any worse. So, like, I don't want to sit here and say it's not going to be McDavid, but like, I want to think outside the box a little bit. And honestly, like, I another answer that's like pretty common, I would say, but I could see it being Cale Makar. I think Cale obviously only played in 60 games last year. Had he been healthy for the full 82, he could have competed for the Norris as well, which I think he was a Norris finalist anyway, I believe. And, Cale's someone who's a super competitive guy. Colorado had that first round loss last year against Seattle. I think Colorado is still the best team in the Western Conference. And, Cale could be a sleeper for the Hart Trophy, which also makes him, I assume, the Norris candidate as well, right?
Yeah, he's who I have for Norris.
But I'll say, if it isn't Cale for the Norris, a defenseman who I think we've been waiting for to, be this incredible all-star, superstar, elite talent kind of defenseman.
Who do you got?
Miro Heiskanen.
Oh, of the Stars. That, I don't know who I saw on Instagram that predicted it, but that's a good choice too. And I'm going to say this, if the Vancouver Canucks pull something out of their ass and like make the playoffs, I could see Quinn Hughes as a dark horse candidate at least.
Put up 76 points last year on a team that wasn't very good. So definitely an option there too. Vezina.
I'm going with our boy Igor. But it's not that, but he's got some competition in the division too with Ilya Sorokin.
Yeah, I said it last year, but I still love the kid, and I think he is solidified himself as an elite NHL goalie.
Which one, Shesterkin or
Jake Ottinger? Jake Ottinger and Dallas. I'm very high in the Dallas Stars this year. But like, yeah, I don't want to go against Sorokin or Shesterkin. But
it's so hard to bet against either of those.
Yeah,
things.
It's so hard. And then, what were the other ones that we talked about?
Other goalies or other trophies?
Who's your Art Ross pick?
I'm going with McDavid. I got McDavid for Art Ross, and I got Austin Matthews for the Maurice Richard. And for the Calder, I'm going with Devin Levi.
That's what I had for the Calder.
Really?
Yeah. Man, it's so hard to do these like preseason awards just because you never really know.
Exactly. Like for all I know, someone could get hurt. Like Connor McDavid could get hurt, and then Leon Draisaitl could carry the Penguins, similar to like Malkin did in 2011-12 when Crosby got hurt. You know what I'm saying?
Art Ross, the McDavid is the safest pick, obviously.
Yeah.
The Maurice Richard interests me. I really feel like it could be Mikko Rantanen
of the Colorado Avalanche. Really,
he had a really strong season last year, and it's kind of quiet. I believe he put up 55, and McKinnon missed some time. Landeskog was out the whole year, which he will be again this year.
Yeah, he's out for the whole year, if I'm not mistaken. Right? He could be done, unfortunately.
And Makar missed some time. And Rantanen still put up 55. So I don't know. This guy's pretty sick, and I think he could he could put up, another 55 to 60. So I might say Rantanen for Maurice Richard just to be a little bit different.
Okay, that's a good call. That's a good call. All right, now let's get into our boys. Now, I don't remember how many episodes of the Blue Crew it was ago that you weren't sure if the Rangers took a step forward or step backwards this year. Has your mind changed since then? What do you think?
I've said it, I think, a lot. I won't know until like 15, 20 games in. But being at training camp today, the attitude around the room and just the overall like feeling in the building. Laviolette's like a very, very intense guy, but a nice guy and a guy that communicates really well. I was actually surprised at how cool he is because he has some humor to him. He's very humble for being in the NHL for such a long time. And the way he speaks to the media and just what it seems like to the players, it's very clear communication, which I think will benefit the Rangers for sure this season. Just as far as watching them play together, I definitely think they have a stronger roster right now than they did a year ago, but clearly on paper, they're not as good as what they were at the deadline last year.
No.
So it's interesting to see if they got better or worse because it could be like an addition by subtraction situation. But I'm still not ready to say that because I truly just don't know. Last year they had so much talent, but weren't able to put it together. It looked like they deferred to Kane and Tarasenko a little bit. And this year they're going to have to just try to figure it out on their own. I mean, not that they didn't have to last year, but Lafreniere and Kakko will have that chance and the opportunity is theirs for the taking. And if they don't succeed, it just could get very ugly. But if they do succeed, watch out, man, because this team could be awesome.
Absolutely. Like Chris Drury did a really good job of bargain bin hunting this offseason. It's like he went into the bargain bin the DVD bargain bin at Walmart and then ended up pulling out like the Lord of the Rings trilogy or something. With the little cap space they had, he put together a real deep hockey team. Even Spit and Chicklets said that the signing of Blake Wheeler might be the steal of the offseason. They said that this week. A lot
of people have said that.
Yeah, I say they are a playoff team. With that being said, and I said this next thing on my 2 previous Ranger-themed episodes, I think this is a playoff team. I think they can win a playoff round, but I don't see them winning the cup this year. However, I am going to stick to my guns on this next statement. I think the Rangers are going to win the cup in 2025. One small step forward this year. They're kind of biting the bullet with the cap situation, and then one giant leap the next. To stay on this year, though, Drury seemed to make a team that can win not only on skill, but with grit and strength as well. And that was driven home by Laviolette at the press conference yesterday in that quote you shared, where he said, you need to win. You need both of those styles to win.
Never wanted to be only a skilled team, and I've never wanted really to be just a hard-working team. When you can combine the two and you can get them on the same page, which is the purpose of training camp. It's to establish your identity, it's to work on it, it's to make the mistakes, to fix the mistakes, to gain confidence with what you're doing on the ice. I feel like when that happens, then the team starts to get confident.
When you make a team that's too star-studded, it seemed like they tried to win on talent alone last year. And sure, Patrick Kane was hurt, but Herb Brooks said it. You don't have enough talent to win on talent alone. I think Laviolette's comments yesterday showed that Drury learned his lesson that you need meat to complement your skill.
When you said that, I knew there was a Herb Brooks quote coming. I fucking knew it. I almost took the words right out of your mouth. But no, it's obviously a lot easier said than done. But Laviolette's challenge is to get Panarin, get Mika, get Kreider, Foxy, all these guys to play a little bit more physical and with an edge.
Absolutely.
We clearly know the skill level that they all have, and there's more guys in the roster with skill too, like Kakko and Lafreniere and Trocheck and Hedel, and these guys are all skilled players. But you need that extra like give a fuck, and that just hasn't shown in a while. And we all know they give a fuck, but other teams, for whatever reason, just seem to have wanted it more. And I think Laviolette can bring that out in this group. And it's, pretty evident from day one that the guys are a little bit, like not afraid, but, they're like feeling it, I think, a little bit. I can't think of the term that I want to use, but there's just a different vibe around this group right now. And it's very encouraging.
I think Vincent Trocheck said like it's a no bullshit, no nonsense or no bullshit attitude.
Yeah, no
right
bullshit.
Now.
That was a great quote he had today. Yeah,
absolutely. And I don't know if this next question, I don't know if kind of played into the last one. Do you think a coach like Laviolette, who preaches a more structured game plan, is exactly what the Rangers need?
So you know what? It's funny, right? Because I was like kind of against it at first because, I'm one for bringing voices, bringing new perspectives. Sorry, my mic got unplugged. But as I was saying, I was somewhat against it. I'm all for bringing in new voices, new perspectives in the NHL, and it seemed like the Rangers were going to go in that direction. But I like what they did. They brought in Laviolette, who is, somewhat of an old school coach and somewhat of a fiery coach, and one who's not afraid to share how he feels toward a player, but in a constructive criticism kind of way. And the staff they brought around him, I thought was very strong. Phil Housley, another guy,
absolutely.
A head coaching experience, and then Dan Muse and Michael Pekka, who have experience with the younger guys that can communicate to the 18 to 22-year-old kind of players. So, I think they rounded it out really well, and they seem to complement each other really well. Laviolette also told a story about like going out to dinner with all the coaches and how they're all bonding and getting along, which is nice. But the more I hear from Laviolette, and listen, like words are just words. Like we're not going to know how we feel about Laviolette till the season actually starts, but he's saying all the right things. I think he has all the right intentions. Like I said, he's a very clear communicator, and all the players already seem to have a lot of respect for him. So, you know what? I think from everything I've seen, the hire is somewhat perfect.
Absolutely. I when they announced this hiring, I was just okay with it at first. I wasn't thrilled about it. However, I was more on board with it after the first press conference. He said all the right things. He talked about bringing this team to Stanley Cup while also stressing that the kids need to be given up an opportunity to earn that top playing time. However, the best part about this coaching hire is the assistants, particularly Dan Muse and Michael Pekka. That doesn't mean Phil Housley isn't impressive. He's a Hall of Famer, and he's been under Laviolette in Nashville. And Lav's defenses tend to put up more points under him, if I remember correctly. So I'd expect someone not named Adam Fox to take some leaps offensively. Keandre Miller, definitely. But Muse, I feel like they're grooming to take over when Laviolette is done. He's got experience working with the younger players in the U.S. National Development Program, including some of the Rangers' own prospects. And Pekka was a great two-way forward as a player, was a great help with some of the prospects in Rochester for the Buffalo Sabres, which I think you touched on previously. I think you had a friend in Rochester who said that he was a good help with JJ Paterka and Jack Quinn. But Pekka will also be a great help on getting this team better on aspects of their games, like faceoffs. Look back to 2021 when Laviolette credited him for making the Capitals better in that area of the game. Think about that. I said faceoffs, right? When I talked about that, I want to make sure I didn't forget. I just want to be sure I was talking about face. What?
Too many Inglings?
No, it's just one point. I just had. But yeah, it was on faceoff. But yeah, but think about that. We love Filip Chytil, but one criticism of his game, and this is the one criticism of him from my idiot Uncle Joe that I actually agree with, and I rarely agree with him on anything, is that he really needs to be better on faceoffs. He's constantly in like the upper 30s or lower 40s for his faceoff percentage. That's my one concern with Chytil possibly being placed in the top 6. But if Pekka is able to get him to 50% or above faceoff percentage, I have zero qualms with putting Chytil in the top 6. I think if this was the Rangers coaching staff in that first round against New Jersey, they win that series. These X's and O's type of guys might be exactly what the Rangers need, particularly the young guys to unlock their full potential, which we'll get into in the next topic. That being said, they're going from a staff who did little to no structure to a staff that preaches structure. They might be a little slow out of the gate this season, trying to get used to this system and put it all together. Think back to 2013-14. and like how bad they were to start that season.
Yeah.
Like on
I
that
was
West.
tweeting fire AV like 5 games in.
Yeah, I mean,
I was like a senior in high school.
The Thomas Hurdle hat trick. I mean, that was my sophomore year in community college. But if they weather that storm, they get some time to get used to their new system, they'll turn it into some good hockey. And to close out this segment, I'd say these hires are a yin-yang, a perfect balance of old school and new school. Players were asking for help in exit interviews. This is that help. That might just help unlock the potential of these kids in this next question. Who needs to make a bigger jump this year? Kaapo Kakko or Alexis Lafreniere?
I mean, I think Lafreniere needs to. But just for like, I think Lafreniere needs to just for the narratives and the conversations around him. But for me, I still think there's like more time with him, if that makes sense. Whereas like Kakko has proven stuff before.
Yeah.
You know, like he looks good. And if he's still playing well but not producing, I don't know what that's going to do to his confidence, you know? Like, so I think Kakko needs to produce, if that makes sense. Like, he needs to see pucks go in. And I think that's more important than like Lafreniere producing points. But Lafreniere needs to be consistent. So it's two different things for me that I'm trying to find the way to word it. They both need to take big jumps, obviously.
Yes.
But I think in different areas, because Kakko's been consistent and he's created opportunities and he's, you know, looked great, I think, at a lot of times, but he hasn't put up the points. Whereas to me, Lafreniere has had good stretches, but has not been consistent at all. So I think there's two different arguments here in a sense, right? Like you need Lafreniere to show that he can play 82 games in the regular season with the same effort every night. Whereas Kakko, you need to see that he can score goals. Like the kid gets chances, he's got to finish. So it's a tough one to pick, but I would say Lafreniere needs more of that like positivity than Kakko does, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think I agree with you on there. I think it is Lafreniere. And we have been clamoring for them to get chances in the top 6 for a while. I feel like both of these guys got to show something. It's not entirely their fault because they came to Ranger teams that were deep on the wings to begin with. So it was especially hard for them to earn some playing time. People love to compare Stützle and Laf because they were the same draft year. The Sens really didn't have much going on for them. So it was much easier for Stützle to get consistent playing time in the top 6 of that lineup. That being said, Kakko's shown me a lot more. He's so good on the boards, and he's arguably the most defensively sound forward on the team. He gets snake bitten at times trying to score and put up points. And I think he's way in his own head because he wants to do everything perfectly. He gets a little too robotic. I mean, the effort's there. I'm glad he's thinking, but he shouldn't overthink. Sometimes just shoot. It doesn't have to be a perfect shot. It doesn't have to be in the perfect lane. Also, think about how big Kaapo Kakko is. He's 6'2", 206 pounds. A lot of his play is around the boards, which requires a lot of physicality. I'm sure you've watched Dodgeball. Kaapo Kakko needs a Patches O'Houlihan in his life. You gotta get angry. You gotta get mean. That's the only way you can play. But now for Lafreniere, he was invisible this postseason. I mean, Kakko had a goal. I get that Laf has not lived up to the hype of a first overall pick. But at the same time, you look at the minutes he's been given and the stats he's put up, I think he's been decent. Playing mostly third-line minutes, getting little, if any, time on the power play unit. Since the 2021-22 season, he has the third most even-strength goals on the team. Kreider has 47. Panarin has 37. Lafreniere has 32. He has more than Zibanejad, who has 31. This team really struggled on the 5-on-5, and he's one of the few bright spots in those situations. He's only got 3 power play goals in his career, but again, that's because he hasn't gotten that consistent power play time. These two were selected first and second overall for a reason. There's a reason I brought up Tage Thompson being a late bloomer when I talked about the Sabres taking the next step before. Drafted 26 overall by the Blues. I think he got traded to the Sabres, and it took him a few seasons to turn into the stud he is now. Sometimes it takes time. Lafreniere entering year 4, Kakko entering year 5, are both poised to have their own breakout seasons, especially with the construction of this roster and the new coaching staff. It's on them now. There's no Kane or Tarasenko keeping them on the third line. Kakko is basically a lock in the top 6. Lafreniere being a natural left winger could keep him stuck on the third line behind Kreider and Panarin, but you reported today, was it today or yesterday yesterday at the press conference, that Lafayette said that Laf will be on the right side to start training camp. If the coaching staff can help him get comfortable there, I think he can easily take that second line right wing spot from Blake Wheeler. I would put a mandate on the both of them, though. If they both stay healthy, they're able to play like a majority of the games, I think they should both put up 25 plus goals and or 60 plus points. Considering the numbers they put up last year playing mostly third line minutes, I'd say it's doable. If they get their opportunity, if they get their opportunities, I mean, what would you mandate for them?
I mean, I think I predicted that, right? I think I came out with my point predictions, and Lafreniere, I think I put 56, and I think Kakko I put 61. And those are pretty big jumps, right? Because Kakko had 40 last year, Lafreniere had 39. So those are big leaps for the two of them. But I think the opportunity is theirs for the taking, like we said. I think it's clear that Kakko will be on one of the first two lines, and you'd have to assume that if Laviolette wants Lafreniere starting on the right side, he will also have that opportunity in one of the first two lines as well. So, yeah, I mean, listen, if all goes well, they're easily both in that range. It's just a matter of the question is if all will go well,
But yeah, I just went on the Blue Crew Pod Instagram. Yeah, you have Lafreniere 56, Avery has 50, Cody has 54, and I don't feel like scrolling far enough to find Kakko there. And last question, and you answered this question on the Blue Crew. Like, my wife and I were on our way home from Cape May listening to that episode, and
thank you.
And you said JackKnife 82, and she just turned to me and her mouth dropped. But the last Ranger question: which prospect are you looking most forward to? Brennan Othmann or Gabriel Perreault?
This was a good question, and I think I said Othmann, right?
Yeah, you did say Othmann.
Yeah. And that was because, if I remember correctly, Othmann's just, his time is right now. Mm-hmm. He's not gonna make the team opening night. I feel strongly that he won't.
And I think I'm sorry to interrupt. I think he's gonna handle that way better than Vitaly Krasov did. But go on.
Well, he knows they're taking their time with him. Like, even today in the group skates, like, Othmann participated with the rookies. He didn't even skate with the big club. So that goes to show that the Rangers, listen, they're taking their time developing this kid. They're not going to rush him. They're going to let him come into his own. And then when they feel he's ready, he'll step into the NHL. Whereas others have stepped into the NHL before they're ready and have failed miserably, and it just ruins their career. So I'm more excited for Othmann because it'll be his first year playing pro. He'll get the reps. He'll probably get called up for a couple games. But with that said, I'm also very excited to watch Gabriel Perreault at BC this year because that Boston College team is going to be absolutely loaded. And, ideally Perreault does 2 years there and, then makes his way over to the Rangers when they could probably use him. This year, I don't think there's a need for him right now. So I don't see him making that jump, which, therefore obviously makes me more excited about Othmann right now. But I think in 2 years, that answer could be completely different.
Yeah. And forgive me, this is a lot because I've pumped Othmann's tires a lot on previous episodes. How can I possibly blow smoke up this kid's ass even more? But Othmann just seems to be like one of those character guys. He's willing to do anything to win. He put on 10 pounds of muscle heading into camp. This kid is just looking to better himself every day. While you can say Perreault, at least on paper, is our best prospect when you look at his point totals and skill. I mean, there's some questions of his skating ability. Maybe you know more about that than I do, but Othmann's attitude and demeanor just seems to be everything you want in a player. He might not have as many points this previous OHL season that just happened as opposed to the one prior where he went off. He had 50 goals, 47 assists for 97 points in 66 games. But a lot of that had to do, but a good reason for him not putting up many points this previous year is because he's trying to learn how to play better defensively and have a complete 200-foot game. And comparing these two, it kind of reminds me of Rick Nash and Matt Zuccarello in a sense. Yes, Nash was a more skilled player and put up more points, but Zuccarello just had that dog in him and left nothing on the table while still putting up plenty of points in the process, which really put him over with the fans. But I say Othman can be even better than Zook when you look at his point production everywhere he's been, and he's basically won everywhere he's been. He's won I forget the name of the cup in the OHL. They went to the Memorial Cup. Yeah, but they won the OHL, whatever the OHL Cup.
I think it's just the OHL Cup.
Okay. Yeah, but anyway, there's all that, and he's chippy with some backbone, which the Rangers lacked for most of their history. He plays a style that's difficult to play against, which is something Chris Drury stressed near the beginning of his tenure. Sounds like a guy you could build an identity around. And Elliot Friedman said on the 32 Thoughts podcast, but this was regarding the Toronto Maple Leafs. He said, choir boys don't win Stanley Cups. You need a team full of pricks. I love the thought of the Rangers having a point-producing player who's at the same time willing to be, for lack of a better term, an asshole and stand up for himself and not take shit from anyone. So if any friends of mine who root for like the Devils, Islanders, Penguins, or Flyers try to say to me, oh, Brendan Othman's an asshole, I'm going to be like, yes. But Othman is likely, but yeah, Othman is starting in Hartford this year, and that's fine. Everything he's shown us shows he'll accept his assignment and just continue to develop there. I'm hoping to make a trip up to Connecticut to see him. I don't want to get tickets, and then next thing you know, he's getting called up to the NHL, and I'm going to this random Hartford Wolfpack game. But he is one of the key reasons I still say the Rangers won the cup next year. I think this kid might be one of those heart guys, a straw that stirs the drink and gives your team an identity that might not get as noticed as the Vezina caliber goalie or the Norris caliber defenseman or the Hart candidate winger, but is a piece that can put your team over upon arriving, like that of Brian Rust or a Jake Gensel joining the Penguins, even though Gensel joined for the second of that back-to-back cup run. Keep this in mind. Perreault broke, I think it was Austin Matthews' record for points in a season with the U.S. national development team. And that says a lot for me to be more excited about Othman. I cannot wait for this kid to be a Ranger full-time. And I'm plenty excited for Perreault. Hell, I'm more excited for Othman than I was for Kakko and Lafreniere. And I genuinely mean that. Is there anything I could have possibly missed there?
I don't think so. I think you hit it all.
Absolutely. But anyway, time for fan questions. We got, from 5 people or 6 total. This first question is from my old friend, Mike Devona. What's more likely, Mika Forselke or Fox Norris? I'm going with Fox Norris simply just because he's won before. He was nominated last year. I don't think Mika's necessarily even earned like a Selke candidacy yet, like being up there like one of the top 3 candidates.
I totally agree. I think Fox Norris is the obvious answer. Kid's been nominated twice in 4 years. So that seems obvious to me.
Absolutely. Next question. Another friend of mine, Cody DeGorder. Is adding Kane a possibility come November? I think that ship has sailed. I think your best bet was to trade Barclay Goodrow, which it's more obvious than not that he's staying on this team now.
Yeah,
and
I don't think it's happening either. It's if it were to happen, it would have happened already. So, yeah, I think it's a long shot.
I mean, there's rumors he could go to the Red Wings, he could go to the Sabres, and I'm brain cramping. Oh yeah, now I remember what I was going to say. And some of the same people who want Lafreniere to go and Kakko to both be in the top 6 kind of also want Kane back. I'm like, which do you want? They're not going to get there if there's this, granted, Hall of Famer veteran blocking them. And then we complain about, how they're not putting up as many points, but you got to pick one there. And This might be a friend of yours. I hope I'm pronouncing this correctly. Chris Jastrzemski. Did I say it right, or do you
Chris Jastrzemski? He's a good friend of mine. He's also better known as Jazz on NHL and TNT. He's their researcher, and
Really?
I already have a feeling it's a dumbass question.
Well, I'm thrilled that a researcher on NHL and TNT might be listening to my stupid podcast. But is Johnny Beast or not Beast?
Yeah, I knew that was going to be something along those lines, and that's just a word. So one of my best friends, Jack, always like said the word beast, and I just started saying it sarcastically, and now it's like in my vocabulary. It's just how those things go, and I would say beast for sure to answer that question.
All right, next question from Peter Dempsey.
He's like in Greece on vacation, and he took the time to write that.
I don't know. My honeymoon might stop in Greece. My wife and I are looking to do a Mediterranean cruise, but
sounds sick.
Get this. Her father-in-law, my father-in-law, he's looking at
father-in-law would be your dad.
Yeah, no, I only had one. I swear, I only had one.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Yeah. One of the things you notice about me is I have a really bad stutter, and like the mind works too fast for my mouth to process. But my father-in-law is looking at cruises, and I swear he's trying to go on the same one we're going on for our honeymoon. It's like, no, we want to spend
a bit
time.
Intrusive.
Exactly. Yeah. Don't get me wrong. I freaking love the guy to death, but I'm getting off topic here. Next topic, Peter Dempsey. What is one NHL arena that Johnny has yet to go to and would like to visit?
Okay, so I've been, but I've never seen a game there, and that's Nashville. I've been there a couple times, but
Nashville is a city I want to visit.
Oh, it's sick. It's so fun there. But I think Seattle would be very cool. I've heard a lot of great things about Climate Pledge, and that'd be a really cool one.
Absolutely. I mean, for me, I think I'd have to go with Vegas. Just, you see the show. I hear nothing but good things about that arena.
So sick.
But
so sick.
I will recommend. Have you been to Nationwide Arena yet or no?
No, I haven't.
I went there for my buddy's bachelor party for the 21-22 season. The Rangers won 5-3. Panarin was he hit the post. He was this close to getting a hat trick. But one of the cool things about it is, like, I'm assuming you've been to the Rock. You know how they have the hockey house off to the side that's also attached to it. They have something similar, but you could actually see inside it. So, like, as the Rangers were playing, we also saw like a high school hockey game going on at the same time. And they had, in like the Prudential Center, how they had the hockey jerseys of every high school in New Jersey. They have one for every East high school in Ohio. And Oh, another thing I forgot to mention about that trip. That night, the night before, we saw the Blue Jackets play the Capitals, and Ovechkin passed Brett Hull that night.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, that's
good trip.
And a two-parter to that question, because I just remembered. My friend Jake Narachi, he's one of my former colleagues at ESPN. He knows you're a big college hockey guy. He was curious if you saw Sacred Heart's new arena.
Oh, I haven't been yet, but it looks so sick. I've heard it's unbelievable. I'm trying to go this year.
I have a funny story regarding William Patterson and Sacred Heart with some, with a lot of chippiness. I'm not sure if I'm at liberty to repeat at least the names, but again, I'm getting off topic there. Next question, Ron Capurso. Who are the Rangers' right wing 1 and right wing 2 after the trade deadline? Hamster wheel turning, hard, Johnny? Yeah, the so hamster wheel's turning.
How the fuck am I supposed to answer that?
I think regardless, Capo Caco is staying right wing.
That's just such a hard question to answer. Because it was clear this year the Rangers were going to go after Patrick Kane. Like, that was clear going into this past year. But like, there's no target right now, so I have no reason to say it's not going to be Kakko or Lafreniere. Like,
yeah,
it's just I don't know who. Like, I don't know who's going to be selling at the deadline. Like, I don't know. That's a very tough question, and I'm sorry that I don't have a good answer for it, but.
I mean, you could always go the safe route. I think if Lafreniere finds himself on right wing, then Kako right wing 1, Lafreniere right wing 2. If Lafreniere is more comfortable on left wing, and you know what, he's still doing fine on the third left wing, then it's go with Blake Wheeler. And the final question, it's a 2-part question from at Sir Fishton Hilbert Shaw on Instagram. 1, do you think this season will be better or worse than last year? 2, what year do you think realistically is ours? I think this is regarding the Rangers, and I think you basically touched up on it when we did talk about them.
So I think this year will be better than last year. I think they're just going to be way more consistent. Last year was a lot of, up and down, just with everything, coaching to performance, to I think just overall vibe around the team. And this year, I think Laviolette's going to be, a huge game changer for this team.
Absolutely.
And as far as our year, again, I kind of agree with you. I wouldn't say it's this year, but I would be confident saying it's next year for sure.
Absolutely. I said before, I think they win a playoff series this year. I think if they rematch the Devils, they beat them. But one of the reasons I don't see them winning, I'm going to get to in the next segment. But again, 2025, the Rangers are winning the Stanley Cup. You heard it here first. And speaking of the Stanley Cup, let's get into Stanley Cup predictions. Do you want to go first, Johnny?
I mean, mine's going to be super basic, but to me, it's Oilers Leafs.
Ooh, I'd love to watch that.
Yeah, I think it'd be incredible for the NHL. Canada hasn't gotten a cup since '93. And what better way to bring a cup back to Canada than watching, those two incredible teams go at it. McDavid, Matthews, star-studded talent on both sides. I think that'd be unbelievable, and I hope it happens.
All right. My Stanley Cup prediction. I'm looking into the future right now. I see the Colorado Avalanche. They're lining up for handshakes, but they're hanging their heads in disappointment because they lost in Game 7 to the Carolina Hurricanes.
Oh, you dud.
I am. I'm going the Hurricanes over the Avalanche in 7
Everyone
games.
says the Hurricanes every year, and they always find a way to fuck it up.
Well, I'll go into why. I'm not the first person to say this. This isn't exactly a new hot take. The Canes are the best coach team in the league.
For sure.
They have the best coach and Rod the Bod Brindamore. They would run through a brick wall for that dude. People say they lack the star power. Personally, I think Sebastian Aho is a star. And Andrei Svechnikov is solid too. I don't care that they lost out on Tarasenko. That situation was weird. But even if you disagree, I think they just have depth throughout their lineup with other guys like Seth Jarvis, Jordan Martinook, Jesper Fast, Teuvo Teravainen, and I could go on and forward. On defense, they have Jacob Slavin, Brady Shea, Brett Pesce. Is it Brett or Brent Pesce? I'm brain farting there.
Brett.
Okay, Brett Pesce. Oh, I'm thinking of the next guy, Brent Burns. They just added Dmitry Orlov and Tony DeAngelo. They have a great game plan, night in and night out. Sure, there are questions in goal. Who knows? Maybe they could make a run at Connor Hellebuck if the Jets should be sellers at the deadline. But their structure allows them to bend, but not break, except the conference finals. But we're forgetting that for right now. I don't want to look at their performance in the conference finals as indicative of them, because remember, they had some players injured that series. Teravainen was hurt. Svechnikov was hurt. I think that's it as far as I know. There might be some more guys in there I'm forgetting. But if they stay healthy and stick to their guns, I'm going to say they get it done. I think the Avalanche will make a run, even if they don't have Gabriel Landeskog for the year. They have the talent with Makar, Nathan McKinnon, Rantanen, among others. But with the depth and game plan of the Canes, I'm going with them. I think it's their time.
I don't disagree.
All right. Yes, you disagreed on your prediction. I'm kidding.
Well, I mean, I don't. It could easily happen. Yeah.
It's they have game plan. They have a solid game plan. But I listened to 32 Thoughts this week too. Elliot Freeman said, "You make a plan, God laughs." But who knows? But anyway, we're gonna close out here. Johnny, before I close out and thank you, how about you plug where people could find you, like your social medias, where they could read some of your articles or view some of your other content?
Pretty much everything I do is on that app now called X. So just find me there.
I refuse to
23.
I refuse to call it X. I'm always going to call it Twitter.
Yeah, Twitter, just JLaz23. I put everything there, so I think that'd be the best place to find me. And Jack, thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate it. A lot of laughs, a lot of fun, and yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much, Johnny. I want to thank you so much for coming on. And I was afraid this show might be too small for you to make time for, or that you were way above my pay grade.
Happy to come on.
I make nothing on this show, or however you want to put it, but I really appreciate you making the time to come on here and discuss hockey with me, especially your busy schedule. You know, you just recently got home from the MSG training facility in Terrytown. Like, I drove past that on my commutes from New Jersey to.
You should have picked me up, dude.
I drove past. No, that was when I worked at ESPN.
Oh,
but yeah, that's another story in and of itself. I knew you'd be knowledgeable on everything we discuss, and I hope I impressed you in return, because I really want to grow this podcast, make it better, and hopefully get noticed by some platform out there. Hell, I live at the Jersey Shore year round. I know Mikey Grinelli from Spit and Chicklets spends his summers pretty close to where I live. When I'd go to Manasquan, I'd secretly hope I'd run into him, shoot the shit with him, and be like, "Hey, by the way, I have a podcast too." But deep down, I know that's not how you actually do it. You can't just bother a big figure when they're having a night out. I have to grow this organically, and that's by doing shows like this with guys like you. So I really appreciate you coming on. I hope this is a well-received episode, and I wish you nothing but success going forward with all you got going on.
Thank you, Jack. I appreciate it, and I look forward to your weekly Blue Crew questions. So keep them coming, all right?
You got it, Johnny. Anyway, if you made it this far, thank you very much for listening. Be sure to follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Funts Podcast, and on Facebook at Fat Athletic Nerds Talking Sports. And be sure to subscribe to us on YouTube and wherever you get your podcast. This is JackKnife alongside Jonny Lazarus. Have a wonderful night, everyone.